Hey guys, and welcome to the video. So disclaimer before I start talking about everything and rambling on. Um, I uh, suck at making videos, and I'm also just pretty lazy when it comes to it. Maybe I'll decide to put more effort in to this as I come out with more updates to the build. But currently, all I want to do is just get the video out there, talk about the build, maybe get some ideas from other people. But yeah, so what I'm calling this build is the Blood Witch cast on crit spark bomber. Um, so it's similar to a lot of the other builds that a lot of the other people in the community have done, which is basically, hey, how many times can I cast comet per second? Now, it doesn't really use any tricks to accomplish that. I know there's the Infernalist build, cast on minion death, and cast on weapon swap. But this one is purely just by casting Spark and building as much crit as possible. So you can see here 83%. Got a lot of crit multi. This is currently bugged. The passive for Blood Witch right now, Gore Spike, isn't working. The forums, the devs said on the forums that it is currently working. It's just not showing up on the tooltip. So if you're wondering maybe why this is a little low, but so the concept of the build is you play Blood Witch, and you abuse the Vitality Siphon. I believe, you can correct me in the comments below if I'm wrong, Vitality Siphon is the only form of Spell Leech in the game. So I think Blood Witch is required to pull this off. This build kind of started out as many different things, and then it kind of turned into how can I utilize my health pool as a Blood Witch, since I have Spell Leech, to trigger comments. And the answer was these gloves. Now, someone on the Path of Exile Discord showed me that there was actually an anoint that accomplishes kind of the same thing as this, and it doesn't require you to crit. I think it's somewhere on the passive tree. It says 20% of your leech is instant, and Comet's currently hitting extremely hard. So 20% of this might end up being your entire life pool, and I'll explain that a little later. But but yeah, so how this build works is you crit, your life leech is instant, and it invokes the comet through life tap. So currently, right now, comet almost costs all of my health currently, but we're running mind over matter and Eldritch Battery to obtain a higher mana pool. So I'll show you a little map real quick. But in the intro to this video will probably be some clips of me killing the breach boss, just kind of showing off the single target damage. But we'll just grab any map. Nothing special. Blooming Field might be a good one. And again, this is the huge disclaimer. This is not a final build. I'm still experimenting. I actually just recently swapped to Spark to test out Spark. Spark seems to be the best ability just because it's kind of the most powerful ability with Archmage. That's the other thing too. And again, I'm sorry if I'm rambling. I'll try to be a little bit more coherent. But it also uses Archmage. So obviously we're stacking mana. It uses Archmage, so we get a ton of extra damage. Like if we turn this off real quick, here's our Comet damage. We turn off Archmage, it drops down like 100k damage. So Archmage is just busted right now. Might as well use it since it's hasn't been nerfed yet. If this gets nerfed, obviously the Comet damage will drop down. It won't be that big of a deal. You'll see what I mean by when we actually kill stuff in here. The other thing I'm using is Mana Flare for mapping. For single target, you can't use this. If you use Mana Flare, your mana just completely ooms, and your mana is your life with this build. So I do not recommend it. Also, how I'm able to sustain the 20% mana cost of this build is mana on kill. So that's important. You have to have mana on kill for mapping. It's just a requirement with this build. If you don't, when you crit with Mana Flare, it's just going to oom you every time the Mana Flare triggers. But you can see if you just kind of keep an eye on my health here, it's constantly ticking down. Now, technically, your life is, protecting you here, but since it's yo-yoing around so much, it's not, technically my effective hit pull is just my mana. But you can see my mana kind of bounces around a lot too when Mana Flare triggers. Now, if you take Mana Flare off, you'll just get less comments. You put skill duration in. Almost died there. And so you can see my mana is much more stable. But you just won't see as many comments because currently I think Flare does trigger some energy gain. So yeah, the whole point of the build is you walk around, you cast Spark, and what's kind of cool, I don't know what to really call this build, but it's kind of like a heat-seeking comments, because the sparks kind of bounce around everywhere and find a rare. And if you know anything about cast on crit, how it gains energy is based on the target it hits. So like bosses, you gain a lot more energy. That's just how they coded it in the game. So you can see there, it finds a rare, and since it's hitting a rare, it gains much more energy and pretty much guarantees that it's going to invoke a meteor on top of their head. So yeah, that's kind of the build. I'm trying to find the breach real quick. Emerald there. And yeah, so to talk a little bit about the skills. So we're using Flame Wall. Just obviously we're scaling so much spell levels. So Flame Wall gets a lot more damage to projectiles. I think. Let's see here. Yeah. So I'm gonna link a path of building down below for everybody to copy this build if they want to. But yeah, Flame Wall does add a lot of projectile damage, so you just want to do it if you feel like you need a little bit more spark damage, I guess. It's not necessary because a lot of your damage comes from the meteors. And as you can see too, spark does pretty much kill everything without having the comet come down. And then we're also using Elemental Conflux. Now, again, I'm still experimenting, but Elemental, fucking spam. And then we ignore. So Elemental Conflux. I don't know if it's the best support to use. You guys can maybe give me some suggestions. But when it lands on lightning, we'll see here. So it lands on lightning. We'll hope. Nope. And Comet still does cold. So like when it hits cold, it makes your Comet hit harder. If it hits lightning, it makes it hit a lot harder. The cool thing is too, Elemental Conflux, when it hits fire, it improves the projectile damage from Flame Wall. So no matter what element this lands on, it's giving you more damage. So that's why I'm using that as well. I could have swore there was a breach in here somewhere. I guess I'm just not gonna find it. Of course, for the video, it's gonna be like that. We'll head up here real quick. I'll put timestamps too. I don't know how to do that yet, but we'll put some timestamps down so you guys can skip over all this boring stuff. Me just blabbering, trying to explain the build to you guys. Yeah, I'm probably just gonna leave because I just want to record this in one take. Okay. Well, I'll include some. I'll record a breach gameplay and tag it at the end so you guys can see. But obviously, it just clears maps very, very easily. So now we're gonna go down to the gear. So I'll quickly hover over everything, so you guys can see it. Get down here. All right, so wand, crit chance, obvious, cast speed. You could get crit damage to make the meteor hit even faster, but I just find cast speed to be nice quality of life for mapping. We also have a ton of cast speed from critting. So when we crit, we gain 8% here. When we crit, we gain 16% here. When we crit, we gain Arcane Surge, and then we have improved Arcane Surge, so we get a ton of cast speed. So you can see when you crit, you will just cast Spark very, very quickly, which helps you proc cast on crit. So yeah, spell damage, max mana, obvious things, all levels. I've been experimenting with cold. I just like all spells because it makes flame wall better, it makes conductivity better, it makes your spark better. It makes this hit harder. It's just, I think for this build in particular, I think all spells is just better than, let's say, just cold for Comet. And then the obvious utility belt. Now this is obviously a really strong one. It's over corrupted. I played this build on a budget and it worked perfectly fine. You're just not going to do crazy amounts of damage. I'm doing like, if I can get ramped up properly, I'm probably doing like 10 million damage per second, something crazy. And obviously with less gear, that number goes down, but it just depends on how much max mana you have, where your crit's at, all that kind of stuff. Big chest piece, because we're running Eldritch Battery to gain more mana. Cast speed, everything from the belt's doubling all this, so that's just kind of where this goes. Same thing here, max mana. Resistances have been a struggle for this build because everything I'm having, like I could drop cast speed and fix my reses a little bit more, on this amulet. So again, not a final build, just kind of, I wanted to make something like this. I had the idea in my head and I made it. This is pretty big. You don't have to have, I think I was running 160 spirit one for the longest time. All it means is you just can't fit something like Blink. You just have to do a weapon swap. So this could be 100 times cheaper than what it is. I think I paid 30 divine for this because of the max mana, the amount of spirit it has. And you can see I'm right at the cutoff, which is how and the reason why I bought it. So it's just quality of life. I can blink around and have Conflex on with cast on crit and Archmage. So definitely not required. Helmet, crit, int for more mana. Reses, again, I could drop int, no problem. We have plenty of int with this build. Boots, chaos res, probably the places to get your chaos res if you're wanting to get this higher is from your chest and your boots, which I kind of have some. You could probably even get it on your helmet if you wanted to be a little more tanky in maps. But yeah, so I'll hover over thing real quick just to make sure I didn't miss anything. And then we'll look at the passage tree real quick. All right. So passage tree, again, work in progress. I'm experimenting with this. I dropped from the breach boss. I'm really thinking about taking it out because it does mess with your resistances a little bit. So yeah, typical mana stacker build. You just want as many caster nodes as possible. So we're picking up crit, more mana. We come up here, we get more cast speed. We do have a lot of jewels. Jewels are very important in this build, I feel like. Again, the recovered 2% mana on kill, pretty big. I have some corrupted jewels just to kind of help my resistances because of this jewel over here. These are pretty easy to find. They're really cheap. I think I bought this for maybe a divine, maybe a divine or two per jewel. Again, you could just remove spell damage, and this thing becomes infinitely cheaper. So you just might have to. Oh, somebody wants to buy those gloves for a lot. We'll cut this part out. I'm probably underselling those gloves, to be honest. But yeah, so we'll keep talking. We'll sell those later. Yeah, so okay. So yeah, we covered this side. We're doing Eldritch Battery, max mana. These are pretty important too. These just allow you to trigger your comment a lot quicker because we're doing a self cast. So with self casting, you just want the best way to gain energy, and that's all these nodes plus these down here. Traveling down here is worth it because you get another jewel slot, more crit damage. It's kind of like everything we want is right here. Yeah, this is obvious, just more crit damage, a jewel socket. Coming over here, I don't know, like I could probably lose this whole wheel, lose all this, and maybe go somewhere else, but I found this jewel. Pretty crazy. This is actually kind of what triggered me to make triggered me to make this build, because I saw it and I was just like, I want to make something that can cast something and just summon comets, just similar to like cast on crit builds in PoE1. But you can see here it gives crazy amount of stats for free, 3% spell damage per every one of these tiny nodes. So it's just it's a super juiced up jewel. And yeah, it's pretty wild. And so excuse me, time lost jewel, we pick up this for more mana. We pick up this for more cast speed. I think I already talked about that. I don't know if this is good or not. Excuse me. Getting over being sick. This just helps for mapping and survivability. When you take a big hit, it makes it so your mana regen skyrockets for the time being, for you to recover. Because again, my life is really not my life. It's my mana. I've had times where I get hit, but since you have sparks flying out, if your mana goes to 0, like you take a really hard hit and you invoke a comet, you're gonna die usually. This build it doesn't seem as tanky as I want it to be. I don't really know how to solve that other than just getting more mana. Because we're converting all of our energy shield to mana too, so I feel like it's pretty tanky. And then obviously we have the massive ring to pick up those, and then these. So, and the guy really wants to buy that. And so, yeah, that's pretty much the build. I'm gonna link a path of building. Oh, here, I'll show you guys the skills. Okay, yeah. But I will link Path of Building down below. I'm going to have a Magic Find set, which I'll show you guys real quick. I don't know why I keep coming out here. So the Magic Find set uses this. So a ton of rarity, 80% rarity. You swap this ring out, so it gives you Dex, and then you can put this on. And then we have 100% rarity because we have it's not quite 100%, but it's close. And you can see mana goes down, survivability goes down just a little bit, but it's perfectly capable of farming maps and doing everything. You still do, your comet's still hitting for millions of damage. So maybe not millions, but just over 1 million is what it says in the Path of Building. So if you want to kill bosses, you just want a really high energy shield chest. And then, yeah, we'll look at skills. So Frostwall, mainly for bossing. Reason why is because it deals cold and lightning. We do cold exposure with lightning exposure, and then strip. So it's actually improving these two. Now, normally, certain builds you have to kind of use 2 skills to accomplish this, but Frostwall with Archmage adds that lightning damage in. So then you just drop 1 wall, and it instantly strips the boss of the resistances. And then obvious one, conductivity, for bossing. With this combined with with shock, since you're shocking 24/7, you're pretty much hitting for true damage on a boss. Those are probably one of the most important things when it comes to bossing. If you don't have this or strip, your comets are going to have heavily reduced damage against bosses because they have inherently a lot of resistances. So yeah, we'll just kind of slowly spell cascade, exposure, strip, magnified effect. This is not. I've been experimenting with super critical and energy retention. For mapping, probably energy retention. For bossing, once you get enough crit, it's definitely going to be super critical. Right now, my crit chance on my meteor with retention in 94%. And with malice, if you know what malice does, it makes them take. It gives you more crit chance. So on bosses with retention, I have 100% crit chance. If we put in super critical, it goes down to 75, but with malice, that goes up even higher. And we just do absurd amount of damage with Comet. So yeah, and then life tap. This is super important. I'll probably put a tag. You have to run life tap. If you do not put this in, it's going to take equal amounts of health and mana, which is really bad because you will absolutely out of your mind if you do not have life tap. That's the whole point of this build. If I had to say the most important thing, it's life tap and these gloves. These two together make it so the comets just rain down like crazy. And then we go to Archmage. Lightning Mastery, pretty obvious. Tempo, more cast speed. Again, like I said, persistence you take out and do this for mapping. Mana Flare is really strong for mapping. It just helps kind of clear those little packs here and there if you don't have the comet triggering when you want it to. And then acceleration, pretty obvious. Pierce, we just want it to go through an enemy so it can hit him again and trigger more energy for cast on critical. Inspiration, kind of required. If you don't have it on, this is what kind of happens to your mana and your life. It drains really, really bad. And for bossing, not good. So if you have inspiration on, you can see our mana is much more manageable. And if we tap a mana pot, it kind of stays still. So something haven't tested yet, you can definitely run a lower level spark. Because again, most of your damage does not come from spark. I can support a level 19 skill gem, so if you are having mana problems, just drop the spark level and you'll save some mana. Connectivity, heightened curse, blink, reduce cooldown, pretty obvious. Fortress, make the circle. Conflux, we're gonna do cold, fire, and then less duration. That just reduces the timer on this, so it switches faster. I think if we take this off, once Conflux kicks in, it's probably going to be on a higher timer. I actually haven't looked at this, so yeah. So it went from 8 seconds to 6. So we want this in there because we want it to swing to lightning more often. So like here, lightning, it gives us 6 seconds, but we want more chances for it to hit lightning per rotation. Soul Offering, this is not part of the build. I was experimenting with having a scepter in the offhand with skeletons, and then you sack it, switch back to this setup, and you get more spell damage. Not necessary at all. This build already does absurd amount of damage. It's just not necessary to have the extra clunk in the build to make that happen. So yeah, Chaos Bolts just from this. But yeah, that is the build. So if you guys have any questions, I'll try to take a look at the comments and see what's going on. If you have some suggestions for the build, I can maybe take a look and post an update. I have made a lot of changes to this build, so I might post an update. I plan on keeping this build going, as in just, you know, playing it more and seeing if I can make it do even more damage. What I want to do is just make Comet almost one-shot a boss. I don't think that's going to be possible currently with scaling. I think you just need too many Comets to come down. But you can see here, I mean, the Comet's already hitting extremely hard. So yeah, just leave a comment below, and thanks for watching.